And we are back. Thank you for joining us once again. We should have a little bit higher quality. Our producers trying to get things running exactly where they need to, and we should already be going into draft. But with CCI having a 1 point lead, I believe they switched sides as well. CCI should be on blue, and it looks like Mint is going to be on red.
Yep, and I always talk about this in the leagues I cast. Right now, currently in my main leagues, blue side has a 57% win rate. I've seen it climb as high as 60%. In these fearless drafts, these early games, really 1 through 3, it is so important to get blue side because, yes, your bans aren't as pointed, but you do have that first pick available and you can tailor your bans to that. So, in this game, you saw how many junglers they banned. Mint tried to get rid of so many options, but now CC Inhouses, Azrael played really good game one on the Trundle, and you still got stuff like Wukong, Xin Zhao, Pantheon, Vi. You have so many versatile playmaking junglers up and available. So Mint are going to try again to ban out as many junglers as they can, it seems, but it's still going to come down to CC in-house have the option to pick whatever jungler they want, and they can really put Itoshi in a corner. And if he gets something like that Graves again, he looked like he knew how to play it, but it didn't really look like it fit well into their composition in terms of winning those fights.
Well, first ban is still not real surprising. It's going to be Udyr, just like you were talking about, banning out a couple of those jungles. Followed a Nocturne. I feel like Nocturne's in a weird spot for me. Not that he can't make a lot of plays, but maybe they're just worried about a specific combo, which, Nocturne's really great for that. Isolation, like into his ult, can put a lot of work. So I can see why people would be worried about him. But I don't feel like he's strongest, but maybe it's the utility that they're worried about.
Yeah, it's mostly for those combinations. Like you said, the Nocturne Orianna is extremely well known, one of the best ball delivery services you can have. As I'm gonna assume that CC in-house have no bans because of subs and rules, because they aren't fielding. Yep, missing those bans, but they grab that Gwen. Like I said, these are not the pick order from draft. We are in client. And Itoshi already right away getting a much more standard strong jungler in the Wukong. The Riven, I'm going to assume that is a pocket pick into the Gwen. But again, CC in-house, I mean, they're just running the gauntlet in terms of high priority champions. Xin Zhao, second highest prio jungler. Gwen, highest prio top laner. Azir, second highest prio mid. And now we're seeing again the comfort being indexed for Mint as Vex is the lock-in. This is a champion that's kind of considered taboo in pro play just because there isn't a ton of damage output, doesn't have the same strengths against dash champs as the kit may seem to have, but in the hands of a skilled player, Vex can be very disruptive. These massive fears going into the middle of your team, and again, they're picking a comp that has a very similar identity. They want to dive into your backline and they want to blow you up.
Well, and subversion of the meta can have a pretty profound effect because, like, you get into like this groove with these competitive games where you expect to see certain things. There's just a plethora of normal things you're going to see, and sometimes when you run into those little upsets, those upsets are what can win you the game, and so maybe that's what they're hoping there for Vex. I do feel same as you. I do think Vex is a little weak, especially into Azir. Azir's just going to absolutely chunk. Another comfort pick immediately into the Jhin. I personally don't like laning with Jhin. I feel like a lot of times it's a boring lane, but I've seen him put in a devastating amount of damage, and that ult is just always really powerful, especially with the range. If he doesn't get knocked up, I do think he's got to watch out for Vex and the stun from Senna because that looks like that's going to be their other pick as well. Into a Maokai, so I think that's Maokai support with a Senna ADC. So they're going to go for a little bit of early silliness, but I think that's going to be hard into both the Jhin and into Nautilus. If Nautilus is able to get his stun off, Jhin can pile that into his double stun, and that's a lot of damage early on. And Maokai just can't absorb damage in the same way Nautilus is. You know, he's a tree. He doesn't have any beef on him whatsoever. It's all plant, so he's a much easier to cut right through. But I do really like the Wukong. I do like the Riven, and I like the Senna. I'm not as sold on the Maokai and Vex, but maybe their goal is to spin off of Maokai's ult. So I think they've got to watch out for that though too. But CCI I think has a more solid comfort pick as far as like their team and their synergy.
Yeah, and they also have very clear win conditions once again, except this time it's pushed much later into the game. You know, if mid GOM can't find a way to end this game before 30 minutes, you're gonna have Gwen, Azir, and Jhin all sitting at 3 to 4 items, and it is gonna be very difficult to deal with. Now, we are playing on patch 15.14, as you see at the bottom, so big update that is going to potentially affect Festus and GG No Rematch is the Liandry's, or more specifically, the Haunting Guys change. You can only have one Haunting Eyes item. So no more Riftmaker, Bloodletter's Curse, Liandry's Anguish. You got to pick one of them. For Gwen, that probably means Riftmaker and no like Riftmaker or Liandry's because you want to have that extra sustain. If Azir goes for one, it's probably going to be the Liandry's to try and get through some of these healthier targets. But I think ultimately, with both of them going towards Nashers primarily, not going to affect them much. And the Jhin, I'm interested to see if this is a game where the Jhin opts to go for that Yumu's first rather than full crit, because they do have a lot of dive, but they don't have so much lockdown CC other than Maokai. So if you can grab that Yumu's early to reposition and get out of the way of Maokai, it will be very useful. I think I don't love Maokai in the meta right now. People have been going more towards damage, more towards poke with the saplings, but I think Maokai is such a strong champion just based on the abilities. The Nature's Grasp is probably one of the 5 strongest abilities in the entire game. So I think if you can get a way to have Maokai on your comp, you should probably go for it.
Well, and I don't mean to like disagree with you, like because like I play Maokai a good amount on mine as well, and it's got a lot of utilities. But I do think that people underestimate the power of those saplings because it's another free set of wards, and on top of that, it's kind of like an artillery ward, right? And it gets a little bit of slowdown. I'm not disagreeing with the abilities being extremely powerful. I think they are, but from me being a support player and watching other support players play Maokai, I feel like a lot of people don't use his saplings nowhere near as much. I think I am getting word that we're going to go straight into the game, so give us 1 second as we transition. Nope, it sounds like I was wrong.
Yep, so
Down, the screens ignite. 2 teams step in for the S fight. CC Inhouses with fire in their play. Mint Gum's got the will to win the day. Only one can take the crown once more. Head left and right through the storm. A flash, you're killed, there's no time to conform. Voices echo in the zone. Digital hearts beat like they're never alone. One shot, one pick, the tide could turn. No mercy here, just lessons. The lights go down and the screens ignite. 2 teams step in for the S fight. CC Inhouses with fire in their play. Mint Gum's got the will to win the day. Heat all click like thunder in sync. Every move is a risk, every call a link. The Nexus burns, the turrets fall fast. This isn't just a game, it's legend in the clash. Maps are drawn and the champion rise. Jungle proud, mid lane skies on fire. Top lane pressure, bot lane war. Only one can take the crown once more. Head left and right through the storm. A flash, you're killed, there's no time to conform. Voices echo in the zone. Digital hearts beat like they're never alone. One shot, one pick, the tide return. No mercy here, just lessons learned. Tension builds high in this boating. Who'll fly, who'll die? This is the clash of Ember night. Pixels blazing, mindset right. Win or die, try. Every team fights higher. This is the clash of legends born. Chaos coded, dreams reborn. From silence to roar. One match, two fates forevermore. Game one goes hard, GOM takes lead. CC resets, they plant the seed. Back and forth like a pendulum swing. Each respawn writes a new beginning. Victory or defeat in the air. Who will rise, who dares to care? Data streams collide, fate is written live worldwide. Hold your breath, feel the wave.
Now, 5 seconds left. Win. The final 8 lives tonight.
This is the clash of Ember night. Pixels blazing, mindset right. Win or die, try. Every team fights higher. This is the clash of legends born. Chaos coded, dreams reborn. From silence to roar. One match, two fates forevermore. When the dust has settled down and the Nexus lost its crown, legends stay inside the lore. CC Inhouses versus GOM forevermore. Forevermore.
There you are, Summoner. We are diving into game number 2 between CCI and Mint. CCI has 1 point on the board so far and has a pretty frightening team to watch out for. Plenty of high priority picks and lots of synergy. Gwen and I think Azir are probably the ones I'm worried the most about. Not that Zen can't do a lot. Zen really can do a lot. But I'm always worried about the Gwen. I'm always worried about the Azir because they're just in so many great positions to get Penta after Penta. And I think I feel like the skill floor for Maokai is higher than people anticipate, just with how you have to play him. Because Jack and I were talking sort of here in the background, sort of off camera, talking about how important it is for Maokai to sort of cycle in and out of these fights, not to just run into it. And the same can be said sort of there for Nautilus. I think Jack was the one that brought that up, to where like Nautilus can go down, but it's not as quick as I think Maokai is. So there's not as much room for forgiveness, but definitely something we have to watch out for. Sort of thinking about the synergies between Nautilus and Zen and Wukong and Maokai. I think the synergies between the supports and the junglers are pretty strong. I think I like Maokai with Wukong just a little bit better, though, for that combination, even if he's just using his ult or using his saplings to slow down so Wukong can go in and get the assassinate.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of double up CC combos. Once that Nature's Grasp comes out, it's going to be so easy for them to follow up. And, you know, it's like I said in the draft, if you have the opportunity to pick up Maokai, you should go for it. And now we're seeing this Senna lane is their big scaling option when it comes to trying to match what CCI have, but it is going to be difficult for them to match as the game progresses because you've got Jhin, Azir, and Gwen all going to be scaling massively. I feel like we didn't talk enough maybe about this Riven pick. I have seen it play very well, but Gwen looking to
there's
try and
going to
get
be
a
the
kill here.
exhaust there for the Riven. She does have to blink backwards, just barely able to make it out, but that means the first blood goes to Gwen! Riven going down. Gwen playing that so calm and collective. Absolutely grabbing it. Nautilus going to go in with a pretty good stun, followed up by Jin getting down. Maokai gonna go down just as quickly, and it's not over. It looks like as we get a small stun on Senna, but Senna has the range and Senna has the spacing. She does make it out, but that's gonna be 2 kills for CCI, especially on Gwen. That's gotta be devastating.
No, it's going to accelerate so much, and doing it without Flash. Riven uses Flash and starts those broken wing dashes forwards, but just the patience from Gwen, skip and slash and snip to death. I think an auto got thrown in there as well. Going to back off now, spend some of that gold. Probably, I think just grab some defensive, just grab some defensive items real quick. Make sure that the Riven can't find a response, and maybe consider that a bit of a caster curse. I wanted to talk about this matchup. I was gonna say I've seen the Rivens do pretty well in it, and the reason is the Hollowed Mist. Gwen is immune, is not as effective when Riven can so easily move into that space, but now going to be more difficult as any trade is going to come at the expense of taking so much damage from these snips. Now, a lot of movement in this bottom river, a lot of attention being put on this bottom scuttle crab, and is going to be picked up by Xin Zhao. Going to get hit by a sapling, or at least chased by one here. Trying to get up to that top crab, but I don't think they're going to get there in time.
Vex seeming to struggle to CS, maybe focusing a little bit too much on the poke. Azir was down a decent amount of health early on, which I think is where the majority of the damage there for Vex did. He really needs to focus on the CSing. Instead, Azir going full send here for this Vex. I don't think it favors him, though. Vex really does do a good chunk of damage this early on, and it looks like Wukong is going to go in for the Gwen, going to try to get the advantage. He's going to pop the clone, but it's not going to be enough. Riven does have to back out. Now Xin is here to knock things up. He's just going to be able to get a flash followed into a stun, and there's going to be the knock up there on Wukong. Wukong going down about half HP, but it looks like they do not want to take the tower dive. Riven going to try to go for a kill, but it looks like Xin is just barely able to make it out. And no! He's going to go in and he's going to die to the Riven. Dario getting a much-needed kill. Engagement sort of sitting here in the background. Nautilus fighting off a little more than he could shoot. Jin flashing forward, followed into exhaust. Senna able to do a whole bunch of damage. Nautilus there at the helm to slow things down, saving his Jin.
Oh. Headshot. Jin just walks up and 4th shot Senna to death.
I missed that.
Very end of the play. I almost still can't believe it happened. That must have been down to like the single digits of perfect HP to get that kill. Everyone in this game seems to have lost their damn minds. I mean, constant fighting, the 2v2 in the bot lane going crazy, and that top lane skirmish, I don't know why Xin Zhao went so deep there. They didn't have the damage. It was pretty clear once the clone of Wukong jumped out, as now seen on a ward. But another big thing was Gwen didn't have those snips charged up, so wasn't able to really output a sizable amount of damage onto those two in the top lane. So in the end, they do end up losing that member, and unfortunately the kill goes into Riven's pocket. But again, the response from CCI, they have been doing their homework. They watched a lot of MSI games. They're going for this early lane swap, and what that's going to allow them to do is start pressuring these solo lanes. Gwen is going to just run in and try and kill Senna here.
Gonna follow it up there with an exhaust. She's gonna go down to about half HP. Nautilus getting some decent stuns, but also taking so much damage. Maybe baiting Zen there. It looks like Senna did finally manage to make it out, but it looks like the mid fight's really not going CCI's favor. Zen does get a small little knock up, blink backwards there from the Velka, or from the but Azir just here to mop up and do a good chunk of damage. Wukong getting so close to getting taken out here. He does have to pop his clone, but at the very least, Vex and Wukong do manage to make it out of there, while Zen goes down, and it looks like Maokai went down in the bot lane.
Yeah, very fortunate for Senna to get out of there. Everyone else just constantly going for these fights, and if Mint keep going even in these fights, it's gonna get scarier, because the scaling on the side of CCI is just so strong. both components of Nashor's Tooth in the pocket of Azir, been CSing well. So even though it's just the one kill being grabbed from that mid fight, going to accelerate them plenty as we see the items components coming through now for junglers, as once again Mint able to pick up these early dragons, or excuse me, CCI now getting the side swaps mixed up. Great job there to pick up that early dragon, something they didn't have the luxury of in the last game, and now could be looking to accelerate towards these breaking points where you have Azir on multiple items, Jhin. I mentioned the Yumu's potential, has that serrated Dirk, so can go either way. And Gwen has been stunted a bit. They swapped into that 2v1. Gwen went for a kill, so wasn't CSing, getting gold. So is going to be stifled a little bit on that first item, whereas Riven got a lot of CS, got a kill earlier, and now is starting to punish Gwen. But something you're going to like to see, they went from taking the dragon, they all walked up, and are now hitting the Void Grubs.
And CCI is really in a great position to do this. Vex is sort of sitting here in the top lane, but I don't think Mint wants this fight. It looks like Gwen is going to go for the Riven once again. She does miss a good chunk of her ability there. All those charge ups went immediately down the drain. Stun there on Nautilus. Nautilus falling into a stun of his own. The team sort of isolated here. It looks like Zen's finally going to go for the damage. He really needs to knock them out as quickly as he possibly can. Wukong knocking up the back line. Maokai absolutely uncontested over here. Able to get some pretty decent knockups, but now beginning to slow down. This Jhin is in danger. Can he get the knockup? Indeed, there's going to be shut down there for Riven. Riven able to get some much more needed gold there on the horizon. Zen might be able to kill there on Wukong, but he looks like he's going to die for it. Riven getting the double kill, trying to follow it into a triple. Going to go for the Nautilus under tower. Is it going to be enough? Indeed it is. There's going to be the triple for Riven. That's exactly what she needed.
This is exactly what CCI needed. No teleport from Gwen means it's a 5v4 for a majority of that fight. And there's a reason that we talk about this being a scaling team. That was a great start to the fight, but they didn't have the damage. You had a two-man Conqueror's Divide that did get two vulnerable targets moved forward, but Senna just stays alive long enough. Xin Zhao has to blow all their resources to take them down. Jhin ends up getting jumped on, and we talked about the threat in the draft of the Maokai Wukong follow-up, and now we're staring at a 4-1 Riven, 2-1-4 Wukong at the strongest point of the game for them. They've been accelerated, so now we're just going to be seeing constant fighting, and CCI need to start to slow things down. They need to find a better pace for them. Consider maybe giving over a couple of objectives. They did get all 3 Void Grubs, so it wouldn't be the end of the world to give up maybe this next dragon. Start pressuring side lanes as you're seeing here to try and just find farm, but Ezreal might be going too deep here.
Jhin getting a pretty decent stun there on the Senna, but it looks like they're going to have a hard time following up. There's going to be a little ult there from Zen. Zen does have to blow his ult, but it looks like it's not going to be enough as Wukong gets the isolation and gets the kill, leaving Jhin by himself. Jhin getting a decent amount of stun, followed into a Nautilus stun as well. Jhin able to pop his ult. It looks like, unfortunately, just so many people taking so much damage. Nautilus now in a good position, just barely out of range there for the Senna. He really wanted it, you could tell, but I think Jhin was going to have a hard time following up for that. Either way, Richard coming in there clutch, saving his ADC.
Yeah, good job by the members of Mint once again. Very reactionary in the best way possible. They're waiting for CCI to make these plays, and now they're jumping back in here knowing the sums aren't there.
Nautilus is taking a good chunk of damage here from Senna, but they're spending all their time here on Richard. Indeed, there's going to be a couple of tower shots. Jhin does have an opportunity to follow it up, but it's going to be still hard into 2. Wukong does have to back off, and I think Senna has a healthy amount of HP ready to go. Gwen still somehow bullying Riven under tower. That's a little surprising to see despite all of the gold that Riven has. I know she's about half HP, but she's really concerned about this Gwen.
Yeah, I just think this Gwen champ is still disgusting. I think that they did a very good job making the champion viable. It's not as stompy as it was when they released this adjustment, but once Gwen gets the Haunting Guise, it's just so much true damage. It almost becomes a burst champion as not able to find the Shurima shuffle onto Vex But now it looks like a good turret dive opportunity. If they can bait out that W stun from Riven, this should be a free dive. And they're doing a very good job stopping the backs. Here comes the minion wave.
Zen is in position to go for this Riven. Getting the shutdown on Riven would help a whole bunch, followed into Exhaust, and there it is. It's not even a contest as Gwyn is just absolutely able to melt it, getting another point on the board. And once again, this is just accelerating Gwyn, so they really, really need to worry about the Gwyn. I'm always constantly concerned about Gwyn in the mid to late game, and her having 2 kills. Even though Riven's got 4, Gwyn just has such a crazy impact on the mid game.
Yeah, and this is one of the moments where I think casters are very important, because you might look at this game state and say, well, you know, it's a 400 gold lead for CCI, but we've seen Mint be so strong. Mint's taking a dragon right now. Like, clearly Mint are in the driver's seat. They got a 3-1 and 5 Wukong, and yes, they are very strong, but Azir is CSing incredibly well, has Nashor's Tooth, and is building towards Merc Treads. The Merc Treads value of this game is very, very good with the fears and the roots, as Xin Zhao caught out in his own jungle.
There's that combo once again with Maokai grabbing the Zen, getting and gotta get taken down. Vex getting some much needed gold in his coffers. That's gonna help him into Azir, and hopefully even things up so he can continue to trade. But it looks like Jin's got to watch out for it. Maokai's not done just quite yet as he rotates towards bottom. He's in a good position to grab this, but Nautilus, Richard in constantly good position after good position, getting all of these stuns off left or right, followed into a stun, followed an ult there by Jin, trying to lock down that Maokai, but Maokai just able to absorb so many of those shots. Ult gonna pop its way down. It looks like Richard, once again, knowing exactly what he needs to do, knowing his role, is just going to eat that. Now gonna get the stun there on Wukong. Wukong gonna get stunned by Jin as well, and he's gonna get taken down. The kill is going to go to Richard, so that is a little bit unfortunate, but Jin's still alive for the... Does finally get mopped up, but it might cost Senna her life, as she's got barely any HP left in the tank. Zen able to grab 2 kills there in the background, and now on the hunt for Senna, but he's going to have a hard time catching up.
Yeah, Richard there, they did a very good job trying to prevent that all in, but Richard, unfortunately, when marked by the Vex ultimate, but when marked by that Shadow Surge, just not able to get enough space in between themselves and Jin. Vex ends up going onto them and getting that kill. I really like Mint really staying aggressive on that turret dive, trying to make it work. They know they have to accelerate the game. The point I was trying to make earlier, Jin doesn't even have a really good item yet, but has a completed item. Nashor's Tooth completed for Azir, Riftmaker for Gwen. They are going to accelerate so heavily in about 10 minutes, and it's going to be very difficult for them to fight back. And Festus, again, playing very well on the edge now, has to run away.
Getting a knock up there on Azir. Azir going down to a half HP. Maokai's having a hard time getting into. Unfortunately, he's only able to grab Richard. Richard is in trouble, and that might be at least 1 kill. Wukong able to grab that kill, so that's going to be good for him. Azir having a hard time. Azir actually getting stunned, but no follow-up for it so far, as CCI does begin to group and start supporting himself. Zen is in a good position to start the fight, and indeed, he looks like he's going to engage, but so far he's being by himself. Azir having a hard time keeping up, making it into this fight. He's not able to do too much, and Zen's going to go down before they really even know it happened. Trying to mop up and trying to turn this fight around. It looks like Azir is indeed going to go down. Senna sticking in the back line. Her positioning's pretty good, but they still have to worry about this Gwen. If they can get this Gwen down, this fight could turn around. Maokai having such a profound impact. Jin being left over here, but still he can chunk teams, and you saw it right there as he just knocked Gwen right off her block.
Yeah, and it just able to do so much damage as Gwen essentially just... It looked almost like a 5v1 because of the Wukong clone, but so much regeneration and sustain coming up. But Senna now pushing forward on Jin, and they have a lot of zone control, a lot of range with the Senna, with the Vex. They can push Jin out of these fights. And so effectively in that fight, if Jin was able to walk forward, it probably would have been a wipe in favor of CCI.
Well, and the support over here for Mint, I think, has aided a lot of these fights really, really well. His positioning could have been a little bit better, but I think Maokai, just being Maokai, sort of turned a lot of those fights around, and he's put a lot of work for each one of those ganks, and that's kind of exactly what I expect. He pairs so well with Wukong, as we've already stated, but I just can't state enough of how well of a job he's doing. Not that Richard's doing bad. I don't think Richard's doing bad at all. He's saved Jin a handful of times, but I do like Maokai a little bit more than Nautilus when it comes to these fights, when it comes to sort of like the utility of their kit. Nautilus is more along the lines of like this wall that just sort of sits in front. Not quite the same as Braum because he's got a decent amount of CC. Not that Braum doesn't either. But like they share on the CC front, and just one AA from Nautilus on each person makes Nautilus a threat, because that's stun after stun after stun. That's 5 free stuns followed up by a hook into your ult.
You're making incredible points, but I was having a hard time completely following, because why did they just give that Rift Herald? They didn't have Nature's Grasp, but they could have just walked up and tried to fight. Mint are in about the best opportunity they could possibly ask for, and now they're going to lose mid-turret, but they have a great fight opportunity here.
Wukong sitting over here in the background. His clone does work exactly how he needs to. Popping a good ult, followed into Maokai. Once again, doing so much work. Senna now just able to chew on that front line. Zen finally getting exhausted there. Gonna go down just as quickly, but it looks like there's still gonna be 4 left here for CCI. CCI's not done. Riven gonna go down. This is a 1-for-1. Jin following into an ult. And looks so far, there's only 2 left on the map, or 4. Yeah, 2 left on the map there for Mint. Mint having to watch out for it there. CCI sort of maintaining their composures, turning that fight around, and indeed mopping up a 1-for-2 kill and turning that into a dragon. This is exactly what you want to see these teams do. Your gold means nothing if you don't get these objectives, because the objectives are how you blow up the enemy's nexus. Your KDA doesn't matter if your nexus blows up, and CCI is sort of living practice of that. They got their gold, and they're going to capitalize on it as quickly as they possibly can.
Yeah, Xin Zhao, I think it's a perfect point you make about the KDA, because while Xin Zhao's score line looks pretty bad, they absolutely carried that fight with their positioning. They were able to completely zone off Vex, Senna, and Maokai from joining that fight, which meant Wukong dove in deep without follow-up, and then Riven teleported in without the support of the rest of their team. So once Gwen gets there, it's just Gwen and Azir shredding you down. And then once those 2 members go, you've got no front line. Maokai's a support with a locket. That's not any real front line. Senna and Vex have to back up, and now we're starting to get to the snowballing point. Vex uses that fear to get away, does get the flash trade.
Flash forward, followed into a hook there by Nautilus. Richard doing a lot of work here, but Vex is not going to go down without a fight, as he almost takes out Azir, but it's not quite enough. Richard just putting a lot of work here for the team. I think when it comes to the player, I think Richard's probably a little bit better than the other support, but I think the champion, I think Maokai is better on the other side. And we're seeing that so much. Richard does have a good number of deaths, but he just is constantly in the right place at the right time, and you see it over and over again, and he's been playing it quite well, and now they're going to turn it into an Otacon after getting that Vex.
I was really nervous when they started hitting this Otacon. I thought, I don't know if they have the damage Azir's backing, but they invest the Azir teleport to get back down here, trying to accelerate this lead. Bot turret's going to go down, and Daro in a bad spot here.
Ooh, Azir getting the knockback there on Riven. Riven getting ulted there by Nautilus, getting knocked up, followed into a Maokai ult, but it's not going to be good enough, as it looks like Jin was able to absorb it, allowing Zen to go in and grab a kill. This poor Gwen. Dario is finally doing well, but CCI is just not going to have it.
Yeah, this is really getting to be dangerous for Mint. They're going to have to find a very clean fight, because Azir is online, Gwen is online,
Ooh,
Jin.
Maokai going in.
Jin's about to find some of those item breakpoints, but it's so hard to find an angle. CCI are playing so clean. They're constantly paired up. They're constantly moving as a group. So how do you find an angle when you're playing this Riven, Wukong, Maokai? You're wanting to front to back, but how do you get through Gwen, Xin Zhao, Azir? They deal so much damage before you have a chance of truly accessing the backline. It's just going to be difficult. They're going to have to play with vision. They're going to have to find angles. They're not terribly down in gold just yet. They're certainly down in terms of champion strength at the moment. Riven opting to go for a Shrilda's Grudge, wanting to get some slows down, try and make it easier for them to dive on, stay on their target. But Gwen, I mean, this Gwen champ right now is just disgusting, able to deal half of Riven's HP without losing any of themselves. Procs the Conqueror, procs the Rift Maker, and now Maokai could be caught out.
Oh no, Maokai gonna get grabbed by the Nautilus and the Jhin. That's stun into stun. Gonna pop the ult there if he can get out. This might actually be worth it. Vex gonna go for the Jhin, but it's not gonna be enough. Jhin does go down to half HP, but most importantly, he saves the Maokai and blows the Nautilus ult. So that's gonna be hard to deal with later on. Wukong gonna go in for the Gwen. Gwen's gonna watch out, going down about half HP. Wukong just absolutely chunky, doing this absolute assassin. Reset there for the ults, and is going to get a kill on Gwen. That's not what Gwen needs. Every time CCI seems to get some sort of advantage, Mint just tries everything they possibly can to turn around, and indeed it's been working out quite well. Vex is now in danger. Got to worry about the Zen. Zen does get a little bit slow, exactly where it needs to. Azir should be able to mop up and do plenty of damage, and indeed, he's not going to get the kill, but he did absolutely chunk Vex there. That means that another dragon should be up, and it looks like about a minute. So it looks like Vex should be up for that fight if nobody else dies here, but Maokai's got to watch out for this, and he is indeed going to go in on the Nautilus. Richard is in trouble. I think they do win this fight with the Azir here, but it looks like they're trying to play it safe. There's going to be ult there for Nautilus, followed into Jhin sitting over here in the background. Everybody's absolutely ignoring Jhin while he's just chunking everyone here possible. Azir also doing the exact same thing. Maokai going to go down, leaving Zen and Senna by themselves. Nautilus finally going to get taken down. Riven here for the save, and they actually turn it around as a triple kill happens on Wukong. The fight's not over just quite yet because Gwen is now isolated. Is she going to be the next to go down? No, it looks like Jhin's going to fight for that place as he does get taken down. Gwen being the only one left. Is Riven going to go for it? Does she want the blood? Does she want the kill? Does she want the ace? No, she's going to turn around and get it, make it extremely anticlimactic, unfortunately.
Verzia absolutely smurfed that fight. I know that the kills went to Wukong, but Senna did so much damage in that fight and was able to keep everyone alive. Such an aggressive build, not going for the Black Cleaver, instead Wukong grabbing the Black Cleaver, so Senna is able to quickly index into an Infinity Edge, and now at 24 minutes, probably sitting at around 60 to 70 souls. So at around, was that 70, 65, 75 crit chance at least, and just doing so much damage with the Static Shiv, pushing the front lines forward. And all of these kills, even before that fight, have been going into Wukong's pocket. So able to stay relevant at this point in the game. 3 completed items, and now moving towards that top side. That was the fight that Mint needed. Senna has to be their savior because Wukong is still going to continue to fall. Riven may start falling soon, and Vex is going to have to find really good cycles to keep damage coming through. They understand they're still at somewhat of a scary point, so they're not going to rush anything. Grabbing their camps, grabbing these waves, smartly funneling a lot of the gold into Senna's pocket. And it looks like CCI are doing the same as we look to see how they set up for this Baron.
Well, I think the last couple of fights, CCI could have done a little bit better on the positioning. I think they got too far away from each other, and I think we indeed did see that because everyone on CCI sort of died in really isolated fashions, especially giving plenty of time there for Senna and for Maokai to hop on them and kill them so almost like one at a time over and over. Nautilus did try to come in, but I think that, once again, that pick is so strong for the Maokai. He's having such a massive impact on the game, and I think it's really helping out their team. Now, something I kept meaning to say, but I actually kept popping off before I got the opportunity, is CCI seemed to be very happy to make these calculated trades, or at least calculate on these trades, and they're trying very, very hard. Constantly to get Mint to play the way they want to play at their tempo, and to be where they want to. And when they're able to get that off, it does work out really well. But when the tables are turned, CCI really seems to struggle if they get caught out in a fight that they don't want to deal with. Wukong getting a little stunned, but I don't think they're going to want to follow this up because that's going to be a lot of gold so far. It looks like maybe, no, they're only about 1K ahead, so but they do need to watch out for it. Zen is a threat. But so is Wukong. Wukong just absolutely chunking backlines followed in that Senna as well.
Yeah, it's important to mention that while the gold lead is pretty in favor of Mint, most of that is on the Wukong, and now Maokai potentially caught out. No needlework. They're going to try and turn this around.
Ooh, it looks like Zen's going to try to push his luck, and indeed he's going to get caught for it. He's going down about half HP. He does pop his ult, but it's not enough as he goes down. Senna mopping up another kill. The grouping is significantly better here for Mint. Vex going in, going to get grabbed there by the Nautilus. Richard seizing his opportunity, trying to get everything he can, trying to get all of his stuns he possibly can. Locking down the... It's going to be great. No, it's not. Azir's going to go down. Richard only here left with Jin. Wukong absolutely going to nuke Richard and followed into the Jin, and Mint might already win this. This is going to be a lot of towers to go through, but that's really unfortunate for CCI. I think, once again, they keep trying to force these opportunities, and it's really, really hurting them.
I mean, they got so much damage down, but Ruka on this Maokai, that exhaust onto Azir was so incredible. It cut down the damage, and no one's hitting Senna. Senna's full HP, just ripping auto attacks throughout the members of CCI, not even considered while standing over the wall. And I mean, it was an okay start. Even with Xin Zhao going down, they forced them into that choke point by that banana brush, and so much damage went down to the front lines. But because they can't finish anyone off, Jin really needs to get this Infinity Edge.
CCI
So
looking
far
to try to
behind.
grab this seized opportunity and go for the fight inside the Nashor. Zen already getting absolutely destroyed there by Riven. Once again, every time they seem to force it, they have so much trouble. Jin getting a couple of really good ults off. Azir going to pop their way in, going to isolate Vex and a couple other ones, but Vex immediately going to go back in for the kill on Azir. And CCI, once again, really struggling as they get isolated and slowly picked off and conquered. Wukong mopping up the Jin, leaving only Richard alive to tell the tell.
I don't know what the hell that was. I mean, that just going in one by one by one by one, and that just pretty much hands Mint this game too. They had the scaling online, but they just couldn't seem to focus in these team fights on the Senna, the one champion that's doing so much, and now going to be a win, a tied series for Mint.
And there it is. There's the GG Mint getting a much-deserved win, staying just ahead of the game. CCI kept poking their head in, looking for those good opportunities, but I think they had 3 back-to-back opportunities where they just forced these fights that they were not ready for, and it really seemed to bite them in the butt. And I think that really gave Mint their victory, and that's kind of surprised for me to see coming from CCI, because like I said, they're typically more these consistent players. They like to go for their consistency, and they don't make a lot of forcing. But I'm not sure what was happening on the comms there. Maybe some bad plays, maybe some bad calls, but it really just didn't work out in their favor this time.
Yeah, it was very disjointed, especially there towards the end, and we saw the strength that they were at that point. Azir putting out so much damage, Gwen doing so much, but I think the main difference, and you see it in the gold, just Jin really not able to find their way into this game. If Jin had maybe, this is why I'm a really big hater of this Yumu's first item. I feel like you really should be looking to start building crit as soon as possible. And while you can debate the utility of the Yumu's, the movement speed is obviously great in the early game while you lack mobility. If they had that Infinity Edge already completed, even just with 2 items, you feel like they would have had at least some strength comparable to Azir and to Gwen. I saw so many fights where Jin was just far, far away, not contributing, not able to walk up because they knew the amount of damage they would be able to put out wouldn't be worth the damage they would take. And you look at the other side, I mean, Wukong was doing so much work in the early game that even though those last fights were really dominated by Senna, 32.2k, always a factor in every single moment of the game, and just really well played by the squad of Mint to stay in this, to look into the face of a team comp that's built to scale, and then to get to the point in the game where CC in-house were at their strongest and not balk and just play those fights well. Really impressive.
Well, and I think really what it boiled down to, because like I think the item pick definitely could have made a difference, but I think the primary problem was just that CCI was just not in position for these fights. So a lot of Jin's alts were sort of they weren't planned, they were reactionary, right? Which means they were playing at the tempo of Mint's drum, and that really showed. And I think that allowed Wukong a lot of those opportunities because that's kind of what assassins do is they are mistake amplifiers is the way I kind of see him, and Wukong's a perfect example of that. If any little bit of mistake, if there's a big enough break in your formation, and Wukong can just sort of slide in there, he's going to do so much damage. And having that knock up, and we saw it over and over again. Wukong placing his clone down, going in, doing a little bit of dashing, and then alting again, and they're just absolutely chunking people, putting in a lot of work there for him, capitalizing on the mistakes that CCI were making. I would really like to see them tighten things up, but I think the upcoming game could still go either way.
Yeah, and I'm really glad you mentioned that Wukong because I can't tell you how many team fights I was watching where every member of CCI in the backline, the Azir, the Jin, even sometimes in Zhao when trying to retreat, was putting in so many abilities to the Wukong clone. And it would get low, but it doesn't matter because it's the clone. And I would watch team fight after team fight. Like Jin is using his fourth shot on the Wukong clone. And it just really shows this is what I wanted after last game. I called out the Graves pick and I said it really just doesn't have the type of agency that a lot of the meta junglers have. And right away, they grab Wukong, one of the strongest junglers in the game. And it clearly wasn't a player issue because, I mean, there's any stat you could choose from to show how much this guy popped off on the Wukong pick.
Not sure if we're going to boil this into another draft. They have been picking draft at sort of like a weird timing, so I'm not sure if we're setting up for a transition. Wow, words are hard. Just quite yet. Give us a couple of moments as we poke a couple things here in the background.
Screens ignite, two teams step in for the Espers fight. CC and